The next one is going to talk a little bit about supply and demand. So, supply is obviously what's available, demand is what's wanted. So, the market price of a product tends to change in a way that brings supply and demand into balance, a condition called equilibrium. So, equilibrium is right on the level. This is illustrated in the graph below, which shows supply and demand for apples. So, price of apples, always look at your X and Y axis to see what you're looking at. Bushels of apples per month. So this is the price, this is how many. Supply, demand, and equilibrium. So supply, here's your demand, and then here's perfect equilibrium, what we're looking for. According to this graph, what is the market price of apples, also known as the price at equilibrium? Pretty straightforward. So you find equilibrium, go over here to price of apples, and what do you get? So you're going to go ahead and get a perfect line to 30. So your answer here is going to be 30 cents. A little bit of a math problem in there for you. Which of the following would result if part of the apple crop were destroyed but demand remained the same? So if part of the apple crop is destroyed, but you still have the same demand, people are going to pay more, and the suppliers are going to charge more for the limited supply. So we don't have equilibrium. So would it be the supply would increase? Probably not, because the crops are destroyed, so you have less supply, more demand. The market price would remain the same. So an example is now you can look at like toilet paper right now or hand sanitizer. People are selling it for $25 for a bottle, and some people are selling like a roll of toilet paper for $10. So obviously that shows that there's a huge increase in the market price. So it's not going to be this one. The market price would go down. So if there's more demand and not enough supply, then why would the price go down? People are wanting the price. People are willing to pay more for something that they desire. So for the market price would go up, because that's the way supply and demand works. If there's less supply and more demand, then people are going to pay more. If there's more supply and less demand, people are going to pay less. It's just kind of the way it works. So the next one is another little map one. So we're going to look at this, and it's the Battle of Fort Sumter was the first battle of the American Civil War. South Carolina had seceded from the Union and insisted that Union troops in South Carolina leave. Seceded means they broke away from the Union, so they were not part of the American Union anymore. A small band of Union soldiers was finally forced to evacuate Fort Sumter on the South Carolina coast. After that, President Lincoln called for 75,000 volunteers to help put down the rebellion in the South. Following his call, 4 additional states seceded, meaning 4 additional more states dropped out of the Union and joined the Confederacy. The Union was the North, and they were against slavery. The Confederacy was the South, and they were for slavery. So the progress of secession is shown here. So you look at your map, process of succession. You look at your little key here. It's going to tell you. So the Union states are those that are in kind of this weird patchwork. Border slave states that did not succeed. So they're states that still had slaves, but they didn't secede from the Union. They stayed part of the North, are the ones that are dotted. So you have these, Kentucky and Missouri. States that seceded after the fall of Fort Sumter, so are kind of the line. So you have Arkansas, it looks like, Virginia, North Carolina, and then states that seceded before. So these are before this whole thing happened with Fort Sumter, and they're like the shaded, and I think it might have a dot in there, but it's most of these southern states. So you go down here, match each of the following states to the appropriate column in the table. It's important to note that a state may be matched on both columns, so you can have them in both, or none at all. So you might have a couple states on here that have nowhere to go up here. You may or may not fill up each column. So, belonged to the Confederacy before the fall of Fort Sumter. So we looked at, so here's before, and that's all these ones along here: Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, and South Carolina. So you look down at here. So what do we have? Belonged to the Confederacy before the fall of Fort Sumter. So before, you're looking at Alabama is. So we go ahead and put in Alabama on here. And then anybody else? So we look. Here's Delaware, part of the North. It's a Union state. So check Iowa. Iowa, also part of the Union. It's up here. Didn't secede. And then we look at Delaware, or North Carolina, I'm sorry. So North Carolina, it belonged, where did it go? So here it is, and it's got like the little X's and stuff. So it states it seceded after the fall of the Union, or the Fort Sumter, I'm sorry. So it's North Carolina. We'll go in this one right here. So North Carolina. Okay. And then Iowa and Delaware, neither one, they don't fit into either of these columns. So it's important to remember that you don't always have to fill these in. Just because they're there doesn't mean they're going to fit into a column. It'll tell you if you have to put them all in a column or not.